Yeah. I didn't start emceeing out of nowhere. I showed up at every party possible, every single one. Whether I was planning to get on or not, I was there. You can be positive even in the chaos. With all of my depression and things, I'm still a glass half full guy, man. Like I still wake up every day like, thank God I woke up today. And he put on this music and I went, I don't know what that is, but Jesus Christ, it's fire. And he put on drum and bass. It was like every genre of music and demographic I had gone through mashed into this somehow soulful sound that sounded so futuristic yet retro at the same time, and it blew my mind. I have a hard time telling you who produced what, who went where, why, but I damn sure know where every snare, hi-hat breakdown, I see it coming a mile away because of the mathematics and the science that goes into such a futuristic and beautiful sound of music. I'm always going to zag when everybody else zigs. I came into this through hip hop. So to say that like I need to stick to one thing is literally goes against every fiber in my soul.
It's kind of wild how this fire spreads. You can stand there, flower under that shower head, watching the dismal off my shoulders, feeling very baptismal, reeling back, film like, can I devour stress? Spend your whole life searching for that power to see tomorrow, and then an eye blink flashes with like an hour left. That sand seeps through your fingers, hoping we carry on, leaving the trail so that lion can be a coward less.
Wow, I am literally covered in goosebumps right now, and those goosebumps are going to keep going for the next hour and 25 minutes, as I'm about to roll out an immense conversation with a bona fide king amongst MCs. Continuing this month's rap theme to mark 50 years of hip-hop, today I am talking to none other than Armanni Reign. Part wordsmith, part scientist, all artist. This man embodies everything it means to be both drum and bass and hip-hop. He's represented from street corner cyphers all the way to some of the biggest stages across the EDM multiverse. No genre has been left unturned, no twist has been left unexplored. From his role as Metalheadz' first US MC way back in the early 2000s to his recent and hugely personal body of work with Bro Safari as Last Rhetoric, Armanni, or David as he is also known, continues to push the craft as hard, as thoughtfully and as progressively as he possibly can, often taking him out of some really dark places in the process. This is a real moment for me and for the One More Thing series. I've been a huge lover of drum and bass and hip hop from day one, and David and I have been in similar circles for most of that time. His voice has been on so many records that have soundtracked my nights out and my career. This one is long overdue, and I have a million questions for this man. I'm Dave Colombo Jenkins, and this is the One More Thing podcast. If you like what you're hearing, then please check out the previous episodes, follow us, support us on Patreon, help me share it and help me spread the word. Real conversations, real artists, real inspiration. It doesn't get much more inspiring than this.
But what if I told you the damage was done? 400 years of oppression, that type of aggression is second to none. You can feel the pressure building in the eyes of children. That's a generation full of demonstrations showing no where farther we have come. There are so many of you who respect addition. Once we finally show you we are one, newsflash, all the evidence, we are the medicine. Anybody to the front line if you can. I'm listening, heart beating to the rhythm of war drums. The importance is you poison the cup which you pour from. When more come for that recognition, I suggest you listen or respect the repercussions. This is a thing that I keep discussing, feeling so fatigued that we believe in nothing but ourselves. Always sitting on a shelf, gathering dust from the winds of nothing. This is change, this isn't magic. This is us taking it back from who has it. Name on the badges and so many nights and then tragic. We will not have it, it's no longer dangerous. Stop with the kids in cages, so the shock in the face when they strangle and step in and step aside. It's more than a gang and it's no longer care what you frame us as. This has gotta stop. Black lives matter, that is the thing. I just can't believe that I'm explaining to people still. You don't wanna hear it, I don't wanna scream it either. You burn it down or the people will.
Armanni, how are you doing, man? Thanks for joining me on this podcast.
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm not bad. Can I call you Armanni or David or Dave?
You know, what's funny is that's the old age old question is like, do I call you by your artist name or your real name? And the truth is, my artist name was actually a nickname from high school. Everyone called my mother when people are around calls me Armani. So like,
Oh, wow.
it was never meant to be my MC name. The Rain was. This is why I attached it later. So everyone who's a friend calls me Armani. You tell people that, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, I mean, okay, you can, you can say what you want to say. I don't care. Call me whatever you want, but Mani's
Wow.
good. Everybody calls me.
Brilliant. If it's all right with your mum, then it's all right with me. I'll call you Armani. But I was going to ask, because it's always interesting when a Dave meets a David, because you've been introduced as a David. I've called you
Mm,
David when we chatted on WhatsApp. Are you more of a David or a Dave?
David, hardcore about it, actually.
Oh, I'm really hardcore about being a Dave as well. So
It's
let's get this
funny.
out of our system. So why is it, what is it about not being called Dave then?
You know what's funny is I have a cousin. There's many of us actually. There's about five of us in my family, all named David. So we're
Oh,
very
wow.
proud of that name. We've said it takes a lot to be a David.
Mm,
The name means beloved in Hebrew. It's the name of kings in biblical sense. You know, so it's kind of like a David thing. You know, nothing against the Dave. It's just like if you're going to call me David, say the whole
yeah.
thing. It's like a pimp name slip
Right.
back. You got to say the whole thing.
I'm cringing because I know earlier on when I was rescheduling this interview, I did refer to you as Dave, just
Oh no,
flippantly in the conversation. It's like, shit, I have called you Dave. I'm the same way, but in the other way, because David feels too formal for me. And I think it takes a lot to be a Dave. If you're going to be a Dave, you've got to live up to be a Dave. You've got to be,
right.
because especially in the UK where there's like a kind of cliche of it being a really popular name and Dodgy Dave, my mate Dave down the pub, and like Ali G kind of helped or didn't help the role of a Dave in that type of way. But if you're going to be a Dave, you've got to be a proper informal Dave. And David, ever since probably my mid-teens, has always felt really too formal for me. Like when the only person who ever calls me David is my mum when she's telling me off, or my dad, or
Interesting.
something like that.
I think it's kind of the opposite in the States because the Dave in the States is kind of downplaying the Dave. So that's an interesting thing. So yeah, that's why I say it takes a lot to be a Dave or a David. We carry that name. People don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't get it if they're not a David.
No, they don't. It's definitely a Dave or David thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
But names aside, it's wicked to catch up with you because our worlds have overlapped in so many ways. I remember Andy C telling me about you way back in like 2009 or
absolutely.
2010. With my role at UKF, where I used to work, you know, your name would pop up all the time on uploads and, you know, across like, you know, the whole base sphere, like from Zomboy to Ray Volp and stuff like that. And then obviously with my role at Vision as well, you've got a really
Yeah.
close connection with them and with the upbeats and stuff. Our worlds have been kind of, you know, we've then overlapped so many times, but this is the first time we're talking, so it's long overdue, isn't it?
Crazy, right? It's funny how big and small this world can be at the same time. And I am absolutely honored to be here and that you took the time out to speak. But yeah, it's funny how we can just be in the same stratosphere for so long and never really cross paths until now. But we're
Yeah.
here now, right? Everything for a reason.
Definitely, definitely. And I want to find out all about your journey. I want to find out everything about this, you know, kind of who I've been listening to for all of these years on so many of these great records. And I'm also really interested, and I've said this to Track as well, because we've done a podcast with him a couple of months ago. I'm
Salute.
fascinated by the US MC take on drum and bass and how you got into it.
Mm,
Because I mean, like drum and bass in the US up until recently has been a real underdog thing, but then to be an MC in that is even more underdog. You've been on this right from the start, and I'm really interested in how it came into your life, your take on it, and your contributions to it, and everything. So let's go right the way back to the start, man.
what's funny is there's many levels to this, but you can't start anything without, for me personally, without my hip hop background, and it
Yeah.
was just hip hop, rap, hip hop, a little bit of R&B because the girls liked it, but mostly hip hop. You know what I mean? And I was doing battles and all kinds of craziness. Doing a lot of hip hop battles back in the day, MCs battles from the street corners. Started off in house parties and going to the street corners, and then eventually radio spots on there, and really diving deep. And that was like my thing. It's like I always wanted to be a rapper, like always.
Wow. Amazing.
But
So this was in
yeah,
Philadelphia, wasn't it? Now let's stay
yeah.
in hip hop for a while now. What would it be in like, you know, the 50th anniversary of hip hop as we speak? There's massive
Hey,
celebrations going on right now in New York. I've got friends out there who've made
yeah,
the
man.
pilgrimage to go there for all these shows. Like let's soak that up. So this would have been, I imagine, mid to late 90s, was it, in
Yeah,
Philadelphia?
Well, it started off in Jersey. So, like, I lived in South Jersey for a little bit. I actually went to high school there as far back as I can remember. I grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania. I spent my high school years in like the woods of New Jersey and then fought my way to get the hell out of the suburbs back to the streets again of Philadelphia. So that's kind of my geographical journey as far as that is concerned. So in Jersey, what was cool when I lived in Chester, that's when I was embedded in old school hip hop, the KRS ones, the EPMDs, Rakim, Nas, and all that. And that was kind of like my hardcore upbringing, so to speak, as far as hip hop is concerned. And then we moved to the suburbs of New Jersey, which was a complete culture shock to me. You know, you go from basically where Philadelphia got its drugs from to the woods. It was just like, okay, I don't know what this is about, but I met a lot of different people in doing that and moving around different parts of Jersey. I
I'm
really attest
guessing, was that your like your parents' occupations and
for
stuff that
sure.
got you traveling
Well,
around?
yeah, God bless my mother. She worked her ass off to always do better. You know,
Yeah.
when I was in Chester, I started getting in trouble a lot, mixture between that and dealing with family issues of, you know, finding out that my father at the time wasn't my actual father. It was like one of those conversations. So it was
Oh
like a
wow.
mixture of getting in trouble in school, straight A student, and then finding that out kind of put me on this different path, which was my own wrongdoing. And and then things started getting a little hairy, but she was always working to get us out of the hood. She always worked to make sure that she was providing for us in a better way. It was myself, my two sisters. She took on my two cousins at one point. There were five children in the house. She always worked to make sure we had a better place to be. So when we
Wow.
moved to Jersey, it was to get out of the city, you know. And we first moved into the deep, deep woods of like the Pine Barrens over in South Jersey, and that brought a different element of people, different demographic, and still kept the hip hop thing, still found that crowd, but you start meeting other people. And then we moved from there because it was just a bit too remote to a more suburban, like super suburb place in Deptford, Sicklerville, New Jersey area. And again, met a different group of people, started listening to all different kinds of music. And I truly believe that is a testament to why I do so many different genres now. It's because when I was rapping at these house parties, you didn't know what was playing. You could be house one minute, rock and roll the next. You know, I started learning two step, all these different genres that I had never heard before, but my love language was hip hop. So I would rap over
Yeah.
everything. It's just I had a house party. That's how I spoke to people. That's how I moved about different crowds. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's how you got acquainted with folks. It was just like, oh, okay, I don't know anybody here. I know people that I came with or cats from school, but like, what was the thing that made me? I could rap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just
Yeah.
like, it's not like dance for you, but it was just like that's how it's like, oh, my boy over here spit. Oh, you spit too? Okay, cool. Let's do that.
It was a great icebreaker, wasn't it? Having
100%.
that role, whether you're a DJ or any of those type of roles, you could kind of hide behind it or use that as a vehicle to break the ice and make
For sure.
connections and
For
stuff like
sure.
that.
For sure, man. Like at a house party, they put something on and you just be down there hitting the bong and just flowing for days and chilling, man. Like that was, and then you find like-minded individuals who mess with that. But yeah, so anyway, I started doing battles in Jersey at the time, and it was kind of towards the end of my high school years. I started um right before I not ran away, but amicably parted ways with my mother. It was almost time to go. It was kind of like, why are you here? Like, I don't know why I'm here. Uh, she didn't feel that way. It was more on my end, you know, the whole
Yeah.
I know everything. I can go on my own. Anyway, so I was doing battles around, and then I want to try to go on the radio 103.9 at Zulu and the Fam, and we used to battle literally. If you call in and you would try to rap against somebody else, you do a verse, they do a verse,
Oh
and I
wow,
told
on the
this
phone.
on the phone. Yeah, dial up.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Like
Now that's old
back
school.
before we all had cell phones.
Yeah.
That's how old I am. But it was trippy, and this moment literally changed everything because the first time I called up, I got about 4 bars into my rap, And I tell this joke all the time. People who have heard me do interviews before, I repeat it because it's important. Comedians will always tell you that comedy is hard because once you're in front of an audience, it's a different thing. Your friends can tell you you're funny all day, but when you're standing in front of people who are ready to heckle you, it's a different bag. It's the same thing with music.
Yeah.
Your friends think you're dope. You might think you're dope. That other person has no idea who you are and couldn't care less. So I start rapping. I get about 4 bars in and they cut you off. And at the time, when they thought you were whack, it wasn't just like they cut you off and told you you were whack. You didn't even know it was coming. They're just like, they cut you off and be like, hold on, hold on. And then they play a recording of literally a coliseum of boos. Just like, boo, like massively embarrassing. And then on top of that, to follow it, they play this Looney Tune rap. It's just like, you can't rap, you are a whack MC, so don't you ever call here again. It's long, like, it's bad, bro. It's like,
man, amazing.
and I tell people this, and I say it's important because this is a life lesson, especially as a creative. In that moment, you have to decide: are you going to fold, or are you going to take that criticism and get better? So instead of my heart being as broken as it was and just leaning into that, what I did, because that was right about before the summer started, I moved down to the shore. Our beaches here is Wildwood, New Jersey. Terrible beaches, but we love them to death. Water's cold, sand's brown. It's terrible, but that's where we all went to party.
Beaches, yeah,
they are. They were ours. We're proud of them beaches. You couldn't go to Cape May. There was no alcohol there. Anyway, so I went down there, no money, no nothing, no plan. And I was just like, I'm going to go down there. I worked on the boardwalk, like doing games, and they gave me a microphone. So obviously I was fine, made tons of money. But what I did is I would work during the day. And whenever I was off, I would literally just walk up and down the boardwalk and battle everyone in sight. Like, it didn't matter who, if you looked like you could rhyme, I was in your face.
So you just go up to them and serve them in that type of
way?
It's
just find a corner, find whoever's rapping. Then we find out they were having competitions. I went there, won a couple battles, and I did that for the whole summer. And the second I got home, I called back on the radio station. And they were like, we remember you. And I was like, yeah, I'm back.
I was going to say, did they remember you? Wow, go on, cool.
100%. Well, at the time I had the name
was so
Capone.
Bad. Okay.
Well, that too. It was just like, they were like, oh, you remember because your name's Capone, and they were like, oh, there's already a Capone, and I was like, I don't want to hear none of that, right? So, they were like, all right, you want some more of this, and I was like, cool. So I battled somebody, I don't remember who, but I won that battle, and then I continued to win until I battled this guy named the Boy B, who was actually Cassidy now. Right. And I won that battle and then became Cypher champion and basically retained that Cypher champion moniker for 3 months straight on the radio. Battled a whole bunch of cats. I say all this to say, not only is that my upbringing, but I had a friend named Kid Digital who owned a radio, not owned a radio. So he was a DJ at a college radio station at Camden County College. And because I was starting to get a little reputation for battling, he lined me up for a battle with some other guy on the radio at the studio. And I was like, cool. And I showed up there. The guy never showed up at all. So I basically freestyled for about 45 minutes straight, just him playing beats left and right, and me just rapping. About 15 minutes left of the show, he said, hey, man, do you mind if I play something different? And I was like, sure, as long as it's not country, I don't care what you put on. Right? Like, I've already been moving around. I told you I've been rapping the house, breaks, all whatever. Like, yeah. And he put on this music, and I went, I don't know what that is, but Jesus Christ, it's fire.
Yeah.
And he put on drum and bass. And at the time, what I loved, what drew me to drum and bass is I was very much into Master Ace. I was very much into bass CDs. I had been listening to different genres of music, and it was almost like all of that had led me up to this moment where he played, the Ghost in the Shell remix, where this was like extremely techie drum line, and then these synths that were just like, holy whoa, like what what is this? You know what I mean? And of course, I was terrible. I was running like, my name is Armanni Reign. You can go get my pain. Like, I had no idea what I was doing, but it was just like the mathematics behind it. I'm very nerdy when it comes to music and writing lyrics and even freestyle. The way I hear things is different. It ruins music. My wife hates me when I'm in a car. It's terrible. I'm just like analyzing every little thing. She's like, just listen to the song. But it was like every genre of music and demographic I had gone through mashed into this somehow soulful sound that sounded so futuristic yet retro at the same time, and it blew my mind.
Oh wow, you've just blown my skin up with goosebumps with that
Bro,
description. Like,
I remember it this to this day. And then to make matters worse, not worse, he's like, hey man, I'm gonna take you out to a couple shows. And that's when I met all the Ill Skills crew, DV8, Swing Kid, everybody from Philly. And I met Mason as well. And Mason from the
I know
Gasm
you were that
crew.
was on your first ever release. You released with him, didn't you, on
Yeah,
Freak
my first
Recordings, I
release.
think, in
Yeah,
2004, wasn't it?
Rough, Rugged, and Raw.
That's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mason, when we first met, he said, take this cassette tape. I want you to go home and listen to this and then come back to me.
I know the Foxy and Skibbity with DJ SS, wasn't it?
like, like, bro, I've been studying MCs from the beginning of time. Like, I craft every element to this day. Anything you hear of me is a mashup of I get nerdy with it. It's almost like I'm just grabbing infinity stones from the greatest of seasons, like trying to come up with the most. Bro, the first time I heard, first of all, SS killed that mixtape. Like, people who haven't heard it, it's on YouTube. Go listen to it. It's DJ SS Suppins Jungle 1999 or 2001 of those. Anyway, it's DJ SS Philadelphia Suppins Jungle with Foxy and Skibbity. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
To hear SS crush it like that with these two completely different MCs, you had the God voice of Foxy, and then the intricacy of Skibbity. Just like, mind you,
Yeah.
to the rest of y'all who were like, I've been listening to drum bass all the time. I had no idea. So to me, it was just like like opening up a universe for the first time and like really staring at it. It was like ayahuasca before that was a thing to me. Like Sonic, like a
Oh,
Sonic
wow.
and lightning of being like, I want to do that.
Oh,
That
I love that
that
feeling.
like that. I don't. Whatever this is, I need to be like I. And it was a live recording, so I'm like a show. Holy shit! Like this is a like I could. I gotta learn how to do that. So I did. I
Wow.
studied the two of them. I studied Foxy. I studied GQ. I studied all these colossal beings and just being like, and I sounded like them for the longest time. Foxy, I tell you, I sounded like all of you, 100%.
But
And
I mean, how did it sound from you then, coming from such a rich culture of street hip hop, like ciphers and battles and everything, then to kind of go into this world and be exposed to this new universe? Was it a continuation of what you already knew or like a whole new language?
I'd like to say it was a little bit, looking back and in hindsight, I'd like to say it was a little bit of both. At the time, it was almost like a whole new language. And the best way to learn a language is to immerse yourself in it. My daughter speaks fluent Spanish right now because she does half the day in Spanish, half the day in English. If you want to learn a different language, go to the country and stay there for a month. So
Yeah.
drum and bass was the exact same thing as I dropped everything and jumped. And I lost a lot of hip hop friends who didn't get it. They were just like, it's too fast. And I'm like, you're listening to the wrong thing, first of all. It's just like you're not listening to the groove, you're just listening to the hi-hats. There's so much more technical shit going on here, but I get it. You're not a nerd like I am, so it's fine. But no, it was at the time, it was like a new language I needed to learn. And over time, it became an extension of my hip hop.
Yeah. As you were able to kind of look back, hindsight being a beautiful thing and stuff like that, and join the dots kind of retrospectively. So it was just like a whole new world, because that's another reason that fascinates me about any US MCs, is because jungle, especially, but drum and bass as an extension of that, is our version, is the UK's version of hip hop. That's where a
Right.
lot of different cultures all came together. And, you know, it's much more than a music. It was a movement, it was a form of expression, it was a way of identification and, you know, sort of tribalism. That's why I wondered kind of which way you'd come in from it. So you lost friends in the hip hop world, but gained friends in the drum and bass world.
Family and family
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. And I had to learn the history of it. I benefited from it because I was raised by DJs. I will always admit that. And I love that actually. And that's also another reason why it was more of a new language at first than an extension of hip hop. Because if it was an extension of hip hop, I would have fallen into the category of those MCs who get in the game just to rap. And it's not about that. As the master himself said, Skibbity, who I basically called the Rakim of drum and bass, you just want to be another instrument within the sound. There's an art form to toasting. There's an art form to picking your spots, knowing when to rap and knowing when to let the music be. You had to become one. And that takes artistry, synergy, understanding, studying the music to a point. I have a hard time telling you who produced what, who went where, why, but I damn sure know where every snare, hi hat, breakdown, to see it coming a mile away because of the
Yeah.
mathematics and the science that goes into such a futuristic and beautiful sound of music that can't be replicated anywhere else. So yeah, it started out as a new language that I fell in love with immediately.
Brilliant. Who were your kind of teachers in this way? Because I know when I think about Philadelphia and drum and bass, I think about Carl Kay. And I've spoken to kind of Josh Wink, and you know, kind of earlier days in the '90s where everything was just one great homogenous pot, where techno and drum and bass kind of lived together on lineups like it did in the UK as well, and it was all just great rave music basically. But I think you probably came into it a little bit later than that, so Josh probably would have been off doing his own thing and, you know, running over him and stuff like that. Well, does Carl Kay, did he come into your universe or into your kind of
Oh,
influences and
absolutely.
stuff? Yeah, go on.
Absolutely. I mean, the upbringing was Ill Skills, which was Kid Digital, Deviate, Swing Kid, all the super underground Philly heads. And then I started moving around with Mason next. Before Gasm was Gasm. He kind of all formed that together, not on my behalf. I'm not saying I did, they did, and included me gracefully. Um, so Mason had a lot to do with teaching me the music from all aspects. He was the one who took me to the first show when Henry Adu, who ran Substitution, love him to death, um, hit the Great Motivator. Same thing. He said he's not ready. I don't know if he'll ever be ready. And I was like, all right, well, that's all I'm doing now. Like, all right, cool. Jalen Hurts swag. Like, I'm just gonna have to prove everybody wrong. But they brought me up. And shout out to Carl K because Carl knew me from the battle world. And it's funny, I didn't even know this until later, but
Wow.
Carl knew me from the battle world. So when he saw me in drum and bass, they actually gave me my first residency at Forward in Philadelphia. I owe a
Oh,
lot to him.
wow.
100%.
Wow.
It's when I met Ray Keith and all kinds of people. Like Philadelphia was sort of, it was New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, DC. Those were the four main hubs of drum and bass back in the day. And I believe Philadelphia was almost the mecca of that. It was us in New York, you know, back and forth. So yeah, my first residency was with Carl K and Occur and all those guys out there, the whole cold front crew. They showed me mad love, and then eventually working with Substitution and meeting SS in real life, like
Uh,
constantly putting myself out there, and Henry putting me everywhere that he possibly could once I had proven myself to him.
I was going to say, was
Um,
there a real moment then where he let you in and said, right, okay, yeah, you've taken it to another level. You're ready now.
yeah, what's funny about Philly? Philly was no, was Philly is a cutthroat city. I feel that a lot of established artists come out of Philly strong because no one gives a shit who you are. You're there, like you're like, I could rap. You're like, yeah, so can he. It's like no one wants and you know what I mean? And that kind of fight just to be relevant in your own city makes stronger artists, makes stronger MCs, makes stronger DJs, producers. Like you gotta really put your work in to anyone to care. And when I joined forces with Henry, like the rest of us, it was almost like we had a military, like people you like ranked almost. It's just like if you didn't put the work in, you couldn't even put input.
Yeah.
And it might have seemed a little weird at times, but like that's how we ran things. So yeah, it was a big deal when I jumped in with Henry, who showed me nothing but love and pushed me everywhere. You know, two black men in a culture of US culture that, you know, is hard to get a foothold in from a UK scene. Like you had to earn your respect hardcore. Like I put it everywhere. No one just randomly said, yo, Armanni, hop on my set. No, I had to earn that. And I respected it to this day as such. I don't just hop on anybody's set. I want to earn that respect from you to get on your set. People say it all the time, but hey man, why don't you just get on? And I'm like, did you talk to him about that first or her? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we had to earn that, you know, and I had to learn the music and the culture. And I always felt that was important. You know what I mean? For me to even bleed it or argue with it. Funny story. I know we're jumping ahead here, but just to my mentality of things, one thing I love about GQ is right towards the end when GQ was emceeing with Andy, I remember a show and I had been emceeing for a while at this point. And GQ was like, yo, man, get on stage with Andy. And I was like, hey, man, no, I'm just watching, do your thing.
Wow.
And he was like, nah. And we got on the show. And I don't know if he wants me to tell the story, but it's not that serious. But he literally after the show pulled me to the side and said, bro, if I say that you can get on stage, you don't need to second guess yourself. Get on and do your fucking thing. But it was just like, that's how wow. You know what I mean? It's like, I always respected the grind of it, you know? And the fact that I was a guest almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. A guest on that music, but then clearly not a guest because I mean, this is all happening like, you know, in 2003, as we said before, you became a Metalheadz US resident, the first US MC to become a Metalheadz resident. So that must have involved an exceptional set with Goldie, like, you know, to be given that title, that responsibility. There must have been something you must have, you know, had an amazing moment on stage or a series of moments or something like that to get that title. You know, again, you have to earn that. And, you know, it's just 100%. As militant in that type of way, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Goldie and I, it's no secret that man is my brother for real. Like we were separated at birth. Our stories, our backgrounds are very similar. Wow. The first time I met him, same thing. Met him in Miami. I believe Rage couldn't make it or something like that. And Henry was like, yo, you're going to MC for Goldie. And I was like, yeah, all right. Like, yeah, sure. And then I got there. And if you ask G loves to tell the story. He loves to tell the little puppy dog story. Because it was like these steps that led up to the DJ booth. And of course, this is prime Goldie, like comes in like, he's like, and I'm like, I think I'm supposed to MC for you. He's like, yeah, come on. And I'm like, I mean, are we cool? He's like, if you don't get on, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And we had a moment, we rocked it. And then we met again at a legendary club, Underground Sean in Philly called the 5 Spot. Me, him, and Sharpness had a just memorable set. And afterwards, he was like, I'm going to take you on tour. And just like I said to everybody else who said, I was like, yeah, okay, sure. I had a good time too, man. You have a good night. Oh, man. Sure enough, man, we went on the road. And I remember the first date that we went on tour, he handed me his book, 9 Lives, which is part of me. I just moved, so boxes are everywhere. And I read that book. We were on the road for, I don't remember how long. It was quite a long time, but I read that book cover to cover in a matter of days. And it really gave me insight to who he is and why we are very similar And from that point on, it was just like, I get it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that dude has done a lot for me, and I can't thank him enough.
Wow. Go on. That's
S2.
beautiful.
There's a lot of people, man. Kenny Ken, very early on, before most people actually took me everywhere. Like, I don't even know why. Like, we just vibed out and like we had a blast. He took that man is the sweetest soul on the. I haven't talked to him in a while, as a matter of fact. I need to holler at you, Ken, and speak. Like, I can't be said enough how much Kenny really helped me out early on. Embraced like all the UK kids that came over and showed love to a USMC young brawl, completely idiotic. Uh, him when me and S finally talk, S has always been cool, always had my back, man. These are like colossal giants that I stood on the shoulders on that showed love, man, and
Yeah.
I owe everything to
Well, I'm
them
going to
as well as
personally
my
send this
stateside.
podcast to all of the people that you're mentioning because they're all beautiful souls who I've spoken to many times over the years as
Love
well. But
them.
there's something that Doc Scott has always said to me, and Scott has always said, like, game recognizes game. And people you can tell before you even stepped up onto the stage and stuff like your actions, your reputation precedes you in that type of way is when you hang with people and when you're, just chilling out and seeing eye to eye, breaking bread with them before the show or after the show and stuff like that. And people can see, it doesn't matter if you're thousands of miles apart and come from a different form of music. It's not about it's about seeing eye to eye and just knowing that each other are, like you say, like brothers from a different mother, really, in that type of way.
100%. Yeah, and that's what I loved about the D&B scene too. And it's funny, those who don't understand it would almost call it gatekeeping. And I say, look, man, every genre has a matter of that, especially when you're extremely protective of what goes into it. You know what I mean? And you need people like that to be protective of it. Did it get out of hand? It's not for me to say. At the same time, who's to say what? Like these these people cared, and I cared about it enough to respect that part of it. I carry that to this day. If I can't have a cup of coffee with you, I'm probably not going to work with you. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just it's it. There were things that I'm not going to repeat because they're just personal to me. But the grand gist of it is this is about the scene and the culture more than anything else. We can all blow up and do whatever, and everyone can have their, you know what I mean? However you want to paint that is fine. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
those things, those titles mean nothing when you're looking eye to eye. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah. Yeah.
say
When
whatever
all
you want about me, but I I noticed that very early on. I was taught that, and I blood, sweat, and tears, dude, for 20
Yeah.
years, 20 plus.
Yeah, and that's the reason why gatekeeping existed in that type of way, because people knew that you had something really, really special, and that was why people were preserving it. And yeah, there was a point, I think, where gatekeeping almost got a little bit too much there, and maybe another generation of people couldn't quite get through, as or didn't have the opportunity to show how hard they were working, because there was already enough people preserving it anyway. So I think there was a point, but it was only because it was so special. That's why. And
Hmm.
people and nobody knew, like everybody that we mentioned, all of the pioneers, they didn't know that they would be able to have a career and cultivate and curate and sculpt this amazing kind of culture. And I mean, that's the only reason why gatekeeping existed, because everyone knew how special it was and wanted to preserve that and didn't want to dilute that in any way, I think, really. And it was completely understandable that in that type of way. I think that things were vetted in, or it took a while to earn your stripes in a way, really. And I don't think there's
100%.
any harm in that, really. And things are very different because you can prove yourself in a very different way now, which we'll get to. And America's kind of current thriving drum and bass scene. But who else, in terms of MCs alongside you? I mean, obviously Terence Track was absolutely killing it. Dino as well needs a shout out, but enlighten me on USMCs,
Oh,
because I know I'm
USMC.
ignorant about a lot of your peers who are around at this time and still around now.
Dub 2 was around before me. Posy D, absolute, absolute legend. New York's finest. TC Islam as well. These
Mm,
these are the people that shook my hand as well as Track in the beginning. James Messinian, funny funny story is when I had came back from Wildwood and doing battles on the radio, I was also doing open mic nights at the Laugh House, which is a comedy club right on South Street, because I was friends with a comedian named Big J Okerson. So I would go with him, and then on open mic nights at the end, I would just do a hip hop song or whatever. And then I went outside, saw someone I knew from Wildwood. He said, "Hey, I want you to introduce you to someone," and he introduced me to James Messinian. Across the street from the Laugh House was 611 Records. Across the street from 611 Records is Fluid Nightclub, which hosts Platinum. So I had met this kid who was like, "All right, well, I'm gonna go." We were freestyling and battling against some other kids, and then it was like, "Hey, man, I'll check you around." And he was like, "I'm gonna go in here," which ironically was Platinum at the time, so he was going to go do his drum and bass thing. I had no idea, and we linked up later afterwards. But James was also a pivotal point in the U.S. scene, man. But a lot of MCs back then, Dub Two, Posy D, Track, James Messinian, my partner Sharpness, Dito. Later on, I met in Denver. When I started touring when I did a tour with Diesel Boy, I met him at the Snake Pit for the first time, clicked immediately. Good kid, great soul kid. We're old now, but you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But yeah, man, Dre, XYZ, all these people, Infiltrata, when he was rapping back then, he went from that to Infiltrata, sick producer, to now the mighty 12th Planet. Like all these people, man, just we had a thing, and especially back then too, like we'd play the set and be out back rapping. It's just like it was that's all we did. Just rap. Wow. You know what I mean? But we molded each other and took care of each other and made sure that we had each other's back as well. And there was always respect. Always.
Brilliant. So how about then at this kind of stage of your career, when did you first get to come over to the UK and start performing to UK crowds or European crowds and stuff? When was the first time you kind of traveled with this beyond North America?
To say I remember the year would be a lie. But I owe my international travels. My first travels out of state would be with Mason. Hit the West Coast with Drew and then more with Mason. But I'm trying to say, did I leave with Mason first? Mason and I have been to London a couple of times as well. He used to take me to therapy nights over there with Dylan and Robin. Shout out to them, man. Also, we the freak recordings and putting out Rough, Rugged, and Raw and like us and Hive and jumping around. But I started frequently hitting the UK and other parts when I started touring with Craze. I have seen most of this planet thanks to DJ Craze.
Wow.
Which was great because it was just two hip hop heads of this drum and bass world, just like, we love it and we don't care what anybody else says. It was just like, but man, that man took me everywhere. And
I actually tried to listen to an interview of you and Craze. It was on like the Internet Archive, and it was from like 2007 from it was in Thailand somewhere. And he says like the host of the show is like, "I'm really sorry, there's people drinking in the background, so you might not be able to hear the interview." As you and Craze talking, but the party is so loud in the background, I couldn't concentrate on the interview at all. But there's stuff out there going all the way back to like almost 20 years ago of you and Craze around the world and stuff like that. And I mean, Craze. Yeah, he did so much for drum and bass, like one of the first DMC competitor to ever bring drum and bass into the mix, and it's a US DJ doing it,
killing
and and it's great to see him back now. There's going to be an interview with Craze, like a written interview running around about the same time as this podcast, actually just madly coincidental. I didn't realize the close link between the two of you until later.
Oh man, that man loves drum and bass more than I think anybody thinks he does. Like he's never stopped waving the flag ever at all. I was when we were on tour and he loves it because he pretend like he didn't want to do it. But we had a crowd. He's like, I don't think they want to hear drum and bass. And I'm like, well, we're just going to have to scare the shit out of them, aren't we? It's like, I don't care. This is what's going down. But he has never stopped waving the flag, man. And that guy is technically sound. He's ruined other DJs scratching for me. Like I would drive down the road, look at the radio on their screen. I'm like, you're a nice guy, but please stop doing that because you're not crazy.
Brilliant.
Just leave it alone. But like, nah, that he's a really good guy, genuine to the soul, happy all the time, and loves all of it, but this music particularly, and was hell bent on repping the States properly. Not even because he felt like he needed to rep the States, just because he felt like drum and bass needed that. You know what I mean? And nobody could deliver it like him. So
yeah, totally. I mean, while I was doing some research on him, like, you know, ahead of the conversation I had with him recently, I found this old mix of his from the Sanctuary. Like, you know, it was, and he was on the same lineup alongside like your Brian G's and your Jumping Jack Frost and your Andy C's and everything. And you can hear Skibberdy's on there. I think it might be Foxy, Fat Man D is on the mic. There's a whole bunch of MCs, and they're all saying how different he is and how special that moment is, and it stands out. Like I was crazy about it, and he could barely remember it. So I don't listen to old sets or anything like that. But I mean, like listening to it, it's like, this is history. This is why isn't more people sharing this? Like, you know, it's 20 years old, but it's still like the way he was cutting up the records, the way he was dropping it all. It still mind boggles me now how he was doing that with the technology available at the time as well. You know, like things are a lot more possible now with technology and mixing and stuff. But it was even it's even mind-boggling 20 years later what he was doing with like records like Warhead and stuff like that. Like, it was incredible, absolutely incredible.
He's a legend, man. But it makes me laugh that, of course, he doesn't remember. Crazy, and so many stories with that man. I have to go. Remember that time we opened up for Jay-Z? He's like, no. I'm like, how do you forget something like that?
Wow. So you've opened up for Jay-Z. Let's dwell on that for a moment.
Yeah, we I can't remember where we were coming from, but we had landed from the airport, and they were like, hey, can you guys open up for Jay-Z in Taiwan? And we were like, yeah, obviously. But it was funny, but like we had to leave straight from the airport, and we hadn't showered or anything. It was just like, let's go do it. And like we went into this Coliseum, just literal stadium, and he's killed it, crushed it. It was kind of funny because they kept putting me on the big screen, and I'm like, I'm just toasted, man. Like, I'm not doing anything. That's the guy over there doing double flips on 3 different decks upside down. Like, what are you looking at me for? And then we did the after party, and it was crazy and nuts. And then I talked to him like 10 years later about it. He was like, yo, I was in Taiwan. And the promoter was like, I was the guy who you were with open up for Jay-Z. And I don't remember any of that. I was like, how do you not remember opening up for what? Like, but yeah, he's so in the moment and ready to go and on to the next thing. He's doing so many things. He's so talented. He's so pushing the envelope. Like, that's all he cares about is moving the needle, man. Like that, literally, no pun intended. But yeah, he's a good dude, man.
Well, you strike me as someone who's got that energy and that momentum and that open-mindedness and, like, you know, versatility in that type of way, and to bring things right the way back to the present day, really, like where you're at the moment. You know, you always strike me as somebody with like the amount of genres that you've been on, the fluency and the rapidity of your, like, you know, still bring hip hop to electronic music in a way, and nothing really kind of sums that up more than the current project that you've got with Bro Safari, Last Rhetoric, you know. And that's like at a time when drum and bass is thriving in the US, and we will cover that in a moment. You've gone back to your roots. You've gone back, you know, you're not riding on that hype train in any way. You're going back to, you know, the deepest of roots on probably one of the most personal projects I think you've ever done.
For sure. Not even a question. That album is as therapeutic as it could possibly be. You know, it's funny. First, shout out Nick. And
I thought it was a beautiful way of how he announced it as well. Like his statement about it, it was all about, he wanted to put all the focus on you. I've never actually spoken to Nick. I've interviewed him via email, and we've been, again, like yourself and me, we've been in very similar circles, probably on the same email chains, and we have a lot of the same friends, but we've never actually spoken. But he strikes me as a very, very down-to-earth and meaningful and thoughtful dude. But the way that he announced the project and put all the spotlight on you was, I think that sums him up as a person. It's testament to the type of dude he is.
I would love for you, the two of you, to have a conversation. Speaking to him on the phone is a highlight of my day. There's certain people in the
Oh,
world who are just like him, Goldie, TB. There are certain people like if I hear a voice message from them, my day goes great. You know what I mean? Like
oh, lush.
as a friend, a father figure, a phenomenal artist, mentor, all a brother, and that guy is. I couldn't I couldn't wait to make a project. At the same time, I didn't want to rush to make a project. Neither one of us did. We talked about making music before we started touring, and then while we were on tour, that's all we talked about. That and our hot dogs and sandwich. It was those and Game of Thrones. Those are three things that we talked about for 5 years. And he is just legendary in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
The Last Rhetoric project. So you said something about drum and bass at its highest point and me not. It's it's a very interesting thing with me. While it may seem, because I did dubstep, I did trap, I did all these things, while it may seem like to some I was riding the wave, I'm always gonna zag when everybody else zigs. I came into this through hip hop. So to say that like I need to stick to one thing is literally goes against every fiber in my soul. I want to make all the things. If it sounds cool, I don't care if you're a giant producer or you've got 2 followers. If you send me the track and I'm vibing with it, I'm going to want to rap on it.
Mm.
It's just the way it is. It's the same thing of going back to my history of different demographics. And if it sounds cool, man, it sounds cool. Like
Yeah.
I don't
That's
care
you.
about anything else. Like no one needs to question my hardcoreness. There was that thing for a
Yeah.
time. It's like if you're not doing drum and bass, then you don't love it. And it's like I think I've put my my resume is kind of fine. Don't worry about what I'm doing over here. Like it's all good. You know what I mean? So like, and not just that. Like drum and bass taught me to appreciate all these other things more.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
definitely, definitely. As a melting pot, as a reflection of all of the other influences, that was what it was always meant to be. Really, was the breakbeats were just the canvas, and then you were throwing your own colors into it. Whether that was like kind of
Perfect.
more like dub influences, or soul influences, or hip hop influences, or kind of rock influences, anything like just the breakbeats were the canvas, and then you could spray what you wanted on it. That was the whole idea.
Right. And this musical journey from hip hop to drum and bass through a little 2-step breaks, starting working with dubstep to festival trap while still also doing hip hop with Mental Sharp and doing all that. Drum and bass taught me a lot of things musically, lyrically, studying MCs of all different genres and cultures and backgrounds. Um, the mathematics of lyricism as well. It all led up to this point, to making this project with Nick. At a point
Wow.
during the pandemic, it was like I couldn't have made this album lyrically 10 years ago. I couldn't, I wasn't comfortable enough to speak about any of my pain up until this point, um, self inflicted or not.
Yeah.
So the point of this album, not the main point, but a specific bullet point in this album was there are no rules to this. I'm not making a dance record here, a love song here. We're just going to create during the pandemic. And because of our both of our musical journeys, we're Nick's the very same way. He started in a punk rock band. He had Ludacris, so many drum and bass, the Evil Intent, like we're all over the place. You know what I mean? The man is a musical psychopath. Like he's just he can make anything at the highest quality. So we were just like, the only thing we wanted to do was make sure that in every song you can hear a part of our roots, some part of our journey. There's always in every single song a call out from both perspectives. From the music, there's a call out to his part of his journey at some point, and mine as well. Certain MCs, certain styles that we mimicked, Beastie Boys, Nine, Gravediggers, just, like there are points we develop. while also trying to remember that we've been in sounds that push the envelope, which he does sonically better than most people on this planet. Didn't matter about hits or hooks. We drop a song with one hook and then the beat switches completely. And then right when you get comfortable, the beat switches again. There's 2 songs in 3/4. Why? Because I love Golden Brown. It's a beautiful song. It was just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, why are we tied to time signatures? If there's anything drum and bass has taught me, it's fuck what everybody else is doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I couldn't have done that. We couldn't have done that. I couldn't have made, I love sound design and skits, but I wasn't ready to create the ones that I did on this album until now.
Was it all done completely over lockdown, completely in isolation, or did you get together? Because it sounds so like, you know, the way you got together one time. Wow, the way you complement each other. This must be the great kind of language that you have between the two of you then. That kind of creative kind of code language almost, really. Because of the way that you fit over his productions, it feels like you're in the same room at all points. And that's, I'm listening to it and I was really perplexed. It's like, this must have been made during the points where, you know, we really wanted to be with our friends and wanted to work with each other and be in that real kind of tangible real life space, but couldn't be. You can feel that frustration amongst many other frustrations and pains on that record. You met one time. Wow.
Not only one time, we met one time after like restrictions had been lifted and we both finally got our shots and we're like, okay, we're gonna wait 2 weeks. We got them at the same time. We're like, wait 2 weeks. And I went there for like a weekend and we did 2 songs and one of them didn't even make the album. But like there's more songs, which is what's great. And then we made more songs after I went home. So most of that was done remotely. But again, and shout out to TB as well, who mastered the whole thing. These are people I speak to regularly about life. And Nick has always, what he said he meant. There was a point we argued about it being an Armanni Reign album. And I just said no. And anybody who knows me knows that that's regular for me. Everyone's like, why don't you just make your own solo thing? I'm like, bro, I love everybody. We're all making this together. I'm not here. If I have to work twice as hard to work a new IP, so be it. Like, it's fine. Like, I understand the difficulty of that. But again, I've been pushing uphill my entire career. Why am I gonna? You know what I mean?
You want to recognize everybody and acknowledge everybody in the project and stuff.
I could not make that album without Nick. There's not a feature. There's not a guest producer. There's nothing. Like, that album cannot be done without Nick.
Yeah. So
there's no way. It wasn't a Armanni Reign thing. It wasn't a Bro Safari thing. This was a David and Nick project. You know what I mean? Like, that everything, like even sonically, his pain is in that music. You know what I mean? And he knows me. He knows what I go through. He knows me more than most people. He's one of the people I call when I'm losing it. You know what I mean? To talk me off a ledge. And we needed to put that forward.
Yeah. And, do you mean literally there? Has it been that dark at points then? Have you
100%
for him help?
I've never shied away from my depression at all. As a matter of fact, anyone who listens, like, when I say this, I need to, because I feel like I've said this before and I've been meaning to put this disclaimer in. I say things like, it's easy to make the rah-rah music and put your hands up. I'm not downplaying that or the artistry that goes behind that in any shape, form, or fashion. That would be ridiculous. Obviously, I love making that stuff and it's great. If you've listened to any of my actual personal, especially hip-hop, again, I with the upbeats, hell, the entire Society of Numbers project. If you listen to the tracks that I've dropped with Mental Sharp, you listen to this album with Last Rhetoric, I have never shied away from the fact that I have been battling depression my whole life. At my highest points, I have still had low points. Again, some of
Yeah.
them self-inflicted, some of them mental trauma from an abusive child, like whatever. I don't shy away from these things, mainly because when I speak about these things and I have these conversations in DMs and I reach other people who are going through this, I need you to know, as cliche as it sounds, that you are not alone. It doesn't matter. It comes for everybody. It doesn't matter. And I've made terrible decisions because of it. I've made great decisions because I need to fight through it. But it's made me who I am, and I will always put that forward. I don't ever shy away from that. And yeah, there are people like Nick who I have had to call and be like, dude, I am at wit's end.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem putting that in my music at all.
No. It's cathartic, I think, to address it. And I do a lot in interviews and stuff like that. And it does define a lot of decisions that you make. And I think, when you say like being at the top, I think that's when it hits you the hardest, because then it's compounded by this guilt, this kind of feeling that you should be appreciating and relishing it all. It's like, well, I've got the job that I always wanted to do. I've got, a wonderful partner, wonderful children. Then that makes it even worse, and you feel even more wretched. You can't get past this block. Like, to confront that and to talk about it and to make other people feel that, if they're going through that, then they're not alone. I think it's almost like a moral duty in a way, really. And it also then as you talk about it, as you write about it, as, like having a conversation like this, it normalizes it, makes it, you're confronting your demons then, really, and just sticking the finger up and just saying, look, I'm not going to let this get me down. I'm not going to let this get in the way of my career, of my aspirations and things like that. But I think when you're at the top and you're feeling it, because it hits you at any time, that's the worst time, because you
100%.
This horrible guilt.
I talk to people, when I've spoken to people, I've had people who I've had conversations with, and I try to show when I'm, empathy is not always about giving the advice, but when the advice is asked of me and I speak on it, I've had people say, hey man, it's different for you because you got like kids and a wife. And I'm like, bro, that makes it 10 times harder. Like to know that I have all these things, and yet I still, for whatever reason, triggers that I work through, you still have that. That makes it actually harder. Not harder because it's, you know what I mean? It's all relative. Completely. But it's just like, for me personally, it makes it harder. If I didn't have those cares in the world, who knows if I would do it healthy or not. I'm not going to dwell on that because I am where I am. But yeah, I have no problem speaking on that ever. You're right. I feel like I have a duty to do said thing.
Definitely. And that's on top of all of the other things that were happening during 2020, especially in America. I mean, happening the world over, but especially in America, where it was a volatile, and you even say like it was a wild year, and it kind of needed to happen. Like it was a pressure cooker. And I was eagerly, like, I'm trying to think of the word now, desperately trying to find silver linings. Like days before all of the lockdowns happened, I was supposed to come out and do this tour in America and write a book about basically how exploring the black roots of drum and bass, really, and tour in America. And I had like 13 dates all in a row of all of these long-standing nights, like D&B Tuesdays, Respect LA and stuff. I was going to meet Goldie in Detroit. His last words to me before the lockdown was, see you in Detroit. I was going to see, at the Movement Festival. I was going to go to EDC. I was going to book my flights on the 1st of March. And then by the middle of March, I think within a week, America completely locked down. You were the first country to say, right, no more people are coming in or anything like that. And it was very clear we were going to be in a whole other paradigm for a little while. And, to have all of that taken away right at the start before anything else came in, and then, it was a volatile couple of months, really. But especially with the civil rights movement, which was strong in the UK. But I mean, this was all written around that time. You can feel the anger, you can feel the urgency. What are your thoughts on that kind of time now, like a couple of years later, and have we made progress?
No. Let me rephrase that. We're always making progress. That's the awareness of it. regardless of how minimal one might see it, my perspective on it is going to be different than the next, and hopefully it's better for my children. But this is a fight and a conversation that's been going on for eons. And it would be irresponsible for me to say anything less than nothing is a flip of the switch.
Yeah.
It's not going to get fixed tomorrow. So to say there is no progress, no. That was too much of me. But at the same time, how do I word this? I've also said that it's going to get worse before it gets better. And we are more divided now than we've ever been.
Yep.
But to give silver lining to that, I always do say, and I don't know if it's just my perspective, but that's all I can give. And I speak to my kids, I speak to other people's kids, I talk to different types of youth. I have never felt more optimistic about the future than the way these kids think now. Sure, there's a lot of knuckleheads out there, and that's highlighted because that's what's fantasized, right? But when I speak to kids, they really couldn't care less about all. Like, they are so sick of our shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a beautiful thing. Like, so it's not that what happened made progress. The pandemic slowed us all down and made us all sit and look at ourselves and everybody else. And that scared the hell out of a lot of people. And you saw the world for what it was. And you know, our nation, just like many other nations, is a little broken right now. And I don't know how it's going to go. But I do feel like a lot of people were enlightened just as much as people were corrupted.
Yeah.
And hopefully it starts to turn where we need it to turn. But I feel better about the future. I'm more worried about 10 years from now than I am tomorrow.
Yeah, so the new generation are definitely, and I mean our children as parents, but also like, you know, the kind of new generation of people who, you know, kind of like, you know, teens, 20s now are in a completely different mindset, a completely different. And that, yeah, like you say, as long as, and there's a track, it's called Time Lapse on the album, which, like, you know, brought a tear to my eye, where you're just, you know, it's kind of ad libs at the end, you know, you're just speaking from the heart towards it. It's either the end or the start of the track, but you're talking about wanting a better future for the children, and it literally moved me to tears. But I think that kind of sums up where we are, really, and how personal that album is for you, really.
Yeah, I mean, that whole intro was basically saying, like, look, I don't have the answers, but I've got 2 kids that I need to make sure they have a moral compass. They don't float off into, that's what I said, I'm just trying to be a weight, you know what I mean, for them to hold on to in this world of chaos. You know what I mean? Like, it looks crazy, but you're going to be okay. And if you can see that I can remain calm in the chaos, and you've got my DNA flowing within you, you know, all the cliches, hate is taught, not, you know what I mean? Like, all those things. Yeah. It's like, if I can just show you that no matter what happens, you could still be pure and cool, and it's still hip, and love conquers all, and all these things that people would just shrug to the side as things to say or put on a poster. Like, no, this is real. This is you can be positive even in the chaos. With all of my depression and things, I'm still a glass half full guy, man. Like, I still wake up every day like, thank God I woke up today. You know what I mean? Like, especially as I get older and you start to lose friends, you start to appreciate these things even more. And if I can pass down that mojo to the youth, then we're gonna be all right. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And that glass half full, I mean, I like, sometimes it surprises people if I talk about kind of my mental health and stuff, because I put out a very positive, energetic Dave into the world, onto the internet, onto the screens. But behind the scenes, my friends who know me personally and my partner and stuff, they know that I'm a miserable guy. But I still don't want to put that. That's not the public. That's not the public Dave. The public Dave is glass half full, because that's what I want to see from other people. And that's, you know, when you're putting that out, you want to see that kind of reflected really in that type of way. It's the being the best version of you that you can possibly be in that way. Have you played your music to your kids yet? Are they at that age where they're starting to understand the cult of Armanni Reign? And they, you know, do they understand how cool their dad is yet, or are they a little bit off that?
Not cool. No, it's a. My 11-year-old is the biggest Armanni Reign fan. They both do. It's weird. It's like, this is where the parental side comes in. Yeah, they get it, but I'm still their dorky dad to them. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, yeah, they like you, but you're a nerd. And I'm like, yeah, but it's cool to be a nerd. They're like, yeah, I mean, I guess. You know what I mean? So, like, my 15-year-old is just a female me. Like, you know what I mean? So it's not, I don't know. It's not like I walk around waving that around. So, you know, they know that I make music. They know that I love it. They see how much work I put into it and all the other things. They see the process, which is what I felt was important to show them to the beginning. It wasn't about I could take you all the shows and yada, yada, yada. But even then, it's to see what things look like on the other side of the fence, to see that it's not all glamour and glitz, to see how dad's up till 4 a.m. making things that one person might not even care about. And then I got to start over. They see the failures, they see like that. I'm more interested in showing them the process than showing them the Armanni Reign. I'll just be dad to them. And that's cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And they kind of naturally just see that anyway, just through like kind of being up really late in the house or being away and having to take away, you know, like no parent is cool when they have to spend so many time, you know, so many weekends on the road and away from their kids in that type of way. So they never see it as cool. They're always waiting for you to have a weekend off where you're not performing, so you can just be that dad, really, isn't it?
And then you have to do the other comparisons. It's like, all right, well, why are you not making songs with Taylor Swift? And I'm like, that's not really not how this works. You know what I mean? Not that I wouldn't.
Let's put it out there into the universe.
Call me Taylor.
If you're listening, please tune in.
Me and Taylor Swift are going to make a drum and bass song.
Amazing. This needs to happen now. Taylor, if you're listening, get your people to talk to David's people.
Me, Goldie, and Taylor Swift.
Oh my God, yeah. Manifest this shit.
This is
brilliant.
Here we go.
Oh, cool. So what are you working on right at this moment now? Because obviously, like, you know, Last Rhetoric, the album came out now in March, but it's been, you know, over the course of 5 years, really. And actually, no, I wanted to say about, because you teased at the album at the time, in real time, in 2020 with To The Few, which was, you know, that I guess that was the start of the project, or like a little tease, or like kind of opening the door to this universe, which is going to continue, because you said you've still got material left with Nick. So this isn't a one-off album, is it?
No, there's more music there. We're obviously both doing a bunch of different things right now. He's running a label. He's got a lot going on, and I've been doing some stuff as well, hip hop with the Alien Gang, Kid Vicious, DT the Basement, all those cats out there.
Sick.
Yeah, we're busy. We're trying to stay busy. We'll get to that in a minute. But so, To The Few, was the opening, and that was actually the spark of the pandemic. Okay, what do we say? So I started writing To The Few before lockdown, but all I had was the first verse. And it's funny, he listened to the verse and took the drums out completely, and we didn't know what we were going to do with it. And then in the midst of the pandemic, if you're looking for silver lining, it sat everybody down to look at things for real, for real. There was no more bubblegum, nothing. It was like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And that first verse, speaking about depression, if you listen to it, it sounds deep and in the context of other things, but that verse was a suicide note. basically, and how you fight through that, almost like writing it down and then burning it. And then as the pandemic started to go on and things are getting heavier is when we started writing about the rest, and I was writing about what was going on in real time. And we just dropped it immediately. I went and made the video myself during the pandemic, during lockdown. And yeah, we dropped that out just like, here's what it would sound like if we did something together. Meanwhile, we had already started working on other things when that dropped. And yeah, one song became 2, 3 became 6. Next thing you know, we got like 28 songs. And then we did a ruthless edit to narrow those songs down. And then we went and made more. And then, so yeah, like everything about that album is us to the core. Old Tales ended up being the title track. Just real hardcore. Everything was like glass and stone, futuristic retro at the same time. You know what I mean? It was just like, I love making it. It was hard to make. And people who listen to it, I appreciate that they hear both the artistry and the pain in it. When I sent it to people who know me, they were like, bro, like, what did you go through to write this? You know what I mean? Because they know, you know? And I was like, yeah. It's like you said, it was cathartic. It was just like, yeah, I had to. And there was no better time than during the pandemic. While most people had to sit down and be inside their heads and had never done that before, it's pretty much where I stay anyway. So
yeah,
it was easy for me to deal with, you know? And what better way than to put it on wax?
Yeah. Can you remember the first time that you and Nick ever worked together? You know, was there that feeling that you'd be able to accomplish something like this together, even, you know, from like your earliest interactions?
I've always respected Nick as a person and producer. Yeah, I think that guy is even more talented than he'll ever understand. like he is just, you can do anything, like whatever you want to do. During the pandemic, he's like, I think I'm going to learn how to play piano. I'm like, okay.
Just of course you are.
Yeah, like why not? You know what I mean? And he's crushing it now. Like I was like, what was I doing? You know what I mean? But like that guy is unbelievable. We did a couple tunes that never came out. I'm probably going to release them soon, actually. You're finding that out now. But yeah,
exclusive.
Yeah, and we've still got other tunes from the album that we need to release. But yeah, we did like 2 songs before that, but they weren't focused like towards the album thing. We were just making songs. We're just like, cool. Let's see what this, you know. I got this
more on a vibe cool. together.
Yeah, it's just like just vibing out. Like send it to me, I send it back. It was cool, it was dope. But he was still evolving and things of that nature. But we've always been on a level, always.
And in the meantime, the backdrop to all of this is like America's probably biggest commercial wave of drum and bass that it's had maybe since the time when you came in. And even then things were so different that it's incomparable now. You know, like this is certainly how it feels and it seems for me. And it was bubbling up before the lockdown, which is why I was going to come out and stuff like that and explore, you know, these long-standing loyalist camps, which have been running longer than any other nights in the world. You know, you look at Elements, you look at D&B Tuesdays, they've been running longer than anything has consistently in the UK. You know, you've got these real defiant, like loyal, you know, jungle drum and bass communities which have kind of existed for all of this amount of time, and now you've got this whole new generation of people coming in, and finally people are getting it, and it's getting the, you know, the kind of spots on bigger festivals and stuff. What do you make of that? And obviously this is my UK perspective, so I'm getting this through the internet, through conversations with, you know, kind of artists like yourself and stuff, and hearing bits and bobs and seeing my friends who go over and tour in their videos. Drum and bass has always had a real presence in America. You are proof, but at the moment that presence is changing and developing and hopefully increasing.
Well, I'm glad that you did say that it's always had a foothold here. I understand we had it dip, but I almost put it in a sense that a dip for us was significant, and we lost shows. And sure, there was a significant dip. People blame dubstep. I don't think that's what it was at all. I stand on that to this day. It was the economy. A lot of things went wrong when you go from having every show with 5 headliners on it to an economy crashing that you can't pay for that, and then now people want to pay the same money for less headline. There was a lot going on at the time, but drum and bass has always been here. Respect has been fine. Elements crushing it, like the torque crew down in Florida, like
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean. Like people migrate, especially in America. As you get older, people move around. There's a lot of things that went on, and we have our ways. It's a running joke here in America, actually, that this is the year. We say it every year. It's, it's just like, this is the year drum and bass is going to be big in America. And it's like, what are you comparing it to exactly? Like, are you trying to compare it to hip hop? Nothing's as big as hip hop except country. Like as far as the festivals still supported it. We can't get mad because you get mixed genre shows. Like I'm not. I mean, granted, you're gonna say, well, you're Armanni, you do mixed genre stuff, and it's like, first of all, like let's get rid of this whole like drum and bass, hardcore, and nothing else. You all suck thing. First of all, like I've been to London. Like it's not what you guys keep pretending it's going to be, man. Appreciate what you got here and know that we're doing good things. And a large part of that was the youth culture really stepping into it. Your Justin Hawks, your Winslows, like they really like. There's a I can name hundreds of them.
Man, it's so inspiring at the moment, isn't it?
It's
man? Like
beautiful, man. And these kids are hard, and a lot of them, for the same reason old heads are upset about it, it's because a lot of them are like, fuck you, we're here and we're going to do it whether you like it or not. And bro, that's how we were. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't be mad at that. Like, that's awesome. Yeah, stand on it for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, yeah, we're here and this is it. And I'm like, yeah,
even with like, you know, because I've spoken to Justin for a long time because of my role at UKF. I've interviewed him, you know, more times than I have lots of other US artists. And you've mentioned country twice in the conversation, like even bringing in country influences. And when I first heard that, like at first I was like, I don't know about this. But then I listened to it again and I spoke to him about it, and he's bringing his uncle in, who's a country singer, and it's part of his roots and stuff. And it's like, okay, that's him bringing in his influences into drum and bass and doing it at such a mad level. You can't help, like, you know, it doesn't matter on personal taste. What he did there was a totally unique record, which really worked and, like, you know, kind of crossed over a lot of boundaries in a way that no other drum and bass record has. Nobody else has brought country into the things. I don't know if I agree with country being part of the drum and bass cooking cupboard, but he still did it because that's his roots. And then other interviews, like a guy called Audio Scribe pointed out to me, and he said, like, look, we haven't grown up with drum and bass like you guys have, so we've got all these other influences, so we're not going to be making the same stuff as you. This is our time to put our spin on it and put our own ingredients into it. And this is what really excites me about the new generation, where, you know, they almost got the edge on the UK generation, who we have been brought up with drum and bass on the radio daily, just in the bed of adverts and TV and stuff like that. It's not like there's a daily drum and bass man like a milkman who comes around to our house and gives us dub plates every day or something like that. It doesn't grow on trees. You still got to dig for it, but it is there. We still grew up with these influences, but for in the US to be into drum and bass, you've still got to dig for it. And so you're going to have this other musical palette to paint from. And that's really fucking exciting.
Yeah. I think another thing that helps or at least pushes the rebel narrative is there was a conversation that the Americans were starting to gatekeep the youth, which is just poetically hilarious. It's just like, that's what? But there's the flip side to that, and what people need to understand too is I don't think any of that was intentional. I think that a lot of American artists were just fighting so hard they might not have, you know, been so in tune with what's going on. Not like you're out of the loop or anything, but it's just like there were a lot of people who were laying down necessary bricks to create the foundation that is here. I can easily sit here and say you guys have no idea what we did so you can have these festivals. You don't know what Donnie, Pasquale, all these people went through. You weren't there when I was in a warehouse trying to getting chased by the feds because we were hooking generators up. I remember those days.
Yeah.
But I also know that you know nothing about that, and that's not your fault. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you can't help what time you've
it.
been born. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I get it, and and I'm glad that we did that, and I'm glad that the shows are doing whatever, and that people are at festivals and the spectacle. It's great. I love it all. So, yeah, man, you kids have fun, and if you need me, I'm here. But like, I get it. Like, I'm proud. I will never stop the "this is our year" conversation because I'm happy that you're proud of it.
Yeah.
That's it. Just support it all. That's all. Doesn't matter what DJs. Well, now look, I know this sounds crazy to some of you. Like, Monty, we don't see you out anymore. I'm old and I have a lot of things to do. I apologize if I can't come out to every show. But the point is everybody that wants to say, like, hey man, it's growing here, just go to every show. Doesn't matter who's playing, do whatever. There's a lot of these promoters, man, especially nowadays. The money's different. Things are harder. Venues are gone. These people are busting their ass to throw you parties, man. Just go out and support you. It's bubbling right now. It's not just a talk on Facebook or something like that. It really is doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and get out there and actually support that, be part of that and experience that. And if you can contribute to it, really, isn't it? I mean, that's always been the best advice, full stop, really, I think, hasn't it? With anything, like if anybody asked me about being a writer or if anybody asked me about getting press, it's like, well, if you want to get press as an artist, then support the press. If you want to be a writer, then read about it. If you want to be a DJ, if you want to be this drum and bass guy, go to every single night that you can and start your own nights. Whatever it is you want to do or want to get involved in, get in there and support the people who are already doing it and learn from them, and you will become part of that culture just naturally. It's not even a contrived thing. You are part of it by supporting it, and then it develops from there, doesn't it?
Yeah. I didn't start emceeing out of nowhere. I showed up at every party possible, every single one. Whether I was planning to get on or not, I was there. Every front and center, all of us, just boom, every party, tired as hell. Didn't make a difference. Just show up and support, man, and support the artists as well.
Brilliant. Go on, amazing. We've come in a really nice loop, so I'm going to kind of wrap us up here now. But what are your hopes then for the future of this culture, just in general, but obviously from your own stateside perspective? What would you like to see?
Just the continued acceptance. I think we're at a point right now where we're starting to see the older generation understand the younger generation and letting them be who they need to be. And I feel like that if there's anything in this culture that I've always wanted to see turn is to stop worrying about the rules, so to speak. This whole culture to me was about bending the rules. If I learned anything from formation and heads and rams, pushing the needle involves breaking eggs. So let's stop. I don't want to, especially here in the States, we have to be different. We can't be the UK thing. I know people get offended when I say stop making, it sounds crazy because I love G. Stop making tunes for metalheads. Make tunes because you love the music, and if it happens to sound like that, cool. But like this whole like dialing in to fit into something is nuts. Make what you love to make and let us just organically let the scene grow to where it needs to be. Take chances, accept other genres. Like that's what this whole thing is about. You know what I mean? That's how you really move the needle, in my opinion. Be accepting of other people and their backgrounds and all that, and I think we're going to be good, man. I don't, as Craze coined the term, we all have musical ADD over here. So like, I don't have time to hate on one thing. I'm over here working with Alien Gang and doing hip hop battles again. I'm trying to do sync music of different type of genres and freestyles and all the, man, just have fun, bro. That's That's what it gets.
Yeah.
I used to be that militant guy. Some of those interviews with Craze, you'll hear Craze. It's like, so what do you think? And I'm like, well, we need to. Craze like, I'm just trying to party. I'm like, you right. like, you know what I mean?
Well, you need those militant phases, though. We've all been through those militant
100%.
phases, and you have to go through that militant phase to work out who you are and what you want from it. And then you kind of move on from that and think, wow, I was a militant dick for a little while. And you need that, like, you need that ferociousness, that fierceness, or otherwise stuff like drum and bass never would have happened in the first place. You know, like Goldie is a great example, that fierceness, that pure passion. Like, you know, before he even says something, you can see in his eyes, like, this man fucking believes in this. And he calls up his artists at crazy times in the morning, and he rings up people and tells them that he loves their record for no other reason, but he just fucking loves that record. To have ambassadors like that at the forefront, and the fact that they were the pioneers and still active and still right up to the future now, that's what gives me faith in the future, really, because these are the benchmarks that have been set right from the start, and these are the benchmarks that we all aspire to.
If the younger generation, if the older generation can accept the younger generation's rebelness just as much as we are, if the younger generation can respect what came before them and honor the craft and really dive into what it meant and understand that, I think everybody's going to be fine. Like it's an unstoppable force. Drum and bass will always be levels above because of its uniqueness and because of its scientific properties. So, you know, as long as we can all just chill out and respect each other, we'll be all right. You know what I mean?
Brilliant, man. I mean, on that really inspiring note there, that's a perfect way to bring this conversation to an end. But I feel that we could carry on for hours and hours, David. Thank you so much, man. Amazing.
No, man, shout out to you for everything you've been doing from so many different aspects. For you to even take this time with me, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I appreciate it.
One more thing.